Welcome to Roots and Ruminants, your podcast for creative and innovative use of farm, pasture, and rangeland. We're going back to the basics of raising and grazing livestock, growing your own forage, and practical land use.
We are back with another episode of Roots and Ruminants. Thanks for chiming in. We're going south with our guest today. We've got Dodge Slead from Lebo, Kansas. I've never heard the name Dodge. It's an awesome, unique name. When we set this up, I was like, holy buckets, that's a kick butt name. This guy's got to be pretty unique. And I think we've got some cool stories from you to share. I'm excited to get to them. Jared, what's going on right now in Carpenter?
Persistent but modest rain.
Yeah.
And a Pipestone.
May 21st, we've got rain yesterday, rain today, rain tonight. A lot of rain coming. And it sounds like, Dodge, you're getting a little rain in Kansas too?
Yeah, we got about half inch. What was that? Sunday night, we got about half inch. We keep getting rains, and it's making it tough to plant right now.
Mm-hmm.
Where is Lebo, Kansas located in Kansas?
Oh, if you drew a line down I-35 between Wichita and Kansas City, and you met in the middle, you'd hit Lebo. It's a little bitty town right in between Wichita and Kansas City down 35.
Okay.
So despite that unbelievably fortuitous proximity, there's not a lot going on. I mean, you think like there'd be a lot of the suburb. People would be commuting back and forth. A lot of traffic would be coming in. Is Lebo growing? Is it yeah?
No, Lebo's not growing. Lebo's not that big of a town. We've got less than 1,000 people in Lebo.
Okay, so people are not, in fact, stopping on the way to Wichita from Kansas City in Lebo and saying, "Hey, why are we even going to Wichita? Let's build a house here."
No. We got a gas station, and we just got Dollar General not too long ago. So now we're big time.
I believe it.
So
pretty soon, every single farm will have its own Dollar General. Dollar General will start building on private properties, leased property on large farms, so that people don't have to drive so far to get to them.
That would be pretty awesome. I gotta say, having only driving 10 minutes, 15 minutes to go to store instead of driving a half hour or better to go to Emporia or Burlington. That's pretty nice.
The only problem with Dollar General is that everything that you buy there falls apart within 2 hours of buying it because it says that disposable, except for the food, which is shelf stable forever.
Yeah, if you need, that's a place to go.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not a big Dollar G fan. I think
I've never been in one.
I know I've been in one. I've been in the one in Clark, and I've been in the one in DeSmet. It's very dollar story. Yeah, it is. It's true to the name. Have we talked about Dollar General before on this podcast, Justin?
No, this is the first.
Okay. All right. So I'm going to get these a little bit wrong, Dodge. But trivia question right off the bat, Dodge, before we even get to your operation or anything about you. How many Dollar General stores are in the United States?
Oh, man.
Yes.
Probably, I don't know, I'd think somewhere around 300 or 400 at least.
There's 18,000 Dollar Generals in the United States. 18,000. Yeah. It's like the number one franchise of anything. It's like 4 times the number of McDonald's or something like that. These are all very rough numbers that I saw a long time ago that I'm trying to recall from memory. So, but it's close. It's like 14 to 18,000 Dollar Generals.
No, that makes sense because our town has one, Burlington has one, and they even have a store, and they're a half hour from us. Emporia has about 30,000 people, and it has 2 or 3. It's got a bunch, and it's got a Walmart and a Dillon's, and I mean it's got everything else, but I think it has 2 or 3 Dollar Generals in it. I mean it's pretty crazy.
Yeah. It's nuts. It's a unbelievable phenomenon. I would think that a store in like the global retailing world, we're like, oh, everybody's going to order it online, or everybody's going to go to a big box store. Dollar General is like, wait a second. What if people wanted to go to a very small store with limited items of super low quality? And yeah, we need one of those every 15 minutes all throughout it. You could run the Pony Express on actual ponies still with service from Dollar Generals and be on time with the mail.
On time with the
so
mail.
many Dollar Generals.
I believe it.
I predict within 5 years, rural areas, Dollar General will make a deal with the U.S. Postal Service to run the post office in rural areas out of Dollar General. My prediction. So we do an annual prediction every year in the podcast in January. This would be I don't know, 5 year prediction. We haven't done that before.
That's a great prediction.
They'd probably be faster than the U.S. Postal Service anyways, so
They probably would. They probably would. Okay, all right, that was a small derail. Lebo, Kansas has a Dollar General, in case anybody's looking for one.
And the Casey's. Big time
And a
Casey's.
Casey's. You got it all. You got it all. I can't believe more people aren't moving from Wichita to Lebo after finding that out.
Well, there ain't nothing but that, so that's probably why.
You got the internet, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Well, that's all you need. You can work from anywhere now. I predict Lebo is going to have an upturn too. Another 5 year prediction. Lebo population growth 25%. Big time boom.
Well, they keep talking like we might get a one of them chip factories east of town. So that won't surprise me. We get a chip factory down.
What kind of
factory?
Yeah, what chip?
Oh, like microchips and I don't know.
Oh,
not potatoes.
I was the whole big thing.
I was thinking white corn tortilla chips. That'd be big news. That's what I thought meant chips. It's like there's no potatoes down there, so it must be corn.
We can't be that lucky.
Maybe Doritos.
I know it. It'd be easier to haul corn straight to there. Probably get a better price.
The Dollar General would probably close if you could buy Doritos directly from the factory, though. You know?
Oh, yeah, it probably would.
Hey, the Casey's. What are they going to do? It's going to be hard times. Okay, so a microchip factory. Okay, if you think Lebo doesn't have a lot going on, I guarantee you the small towns around me are not talking about microchip factories as a possibility in their near future. So Lebo kind of sounds like it's a lot more happening than you're giving it credit for.
I think it's more Burlington. Burlington's about a half hour south of us, and we got a power plant there. So that keeps Coffee County pretty busy. So if people are going to move somewhere for something, it's going to be for the nuclear power plant.
Yeah. And you got Coffee County. Great. Okay, we've gotten to know your town and your county and your neighboring town now. Dodge, what about yourself?
Oh, I don't know. Well, I guess I'll just start with this. Sled Farms, we've been here. I'd be the 7th generation here in Coffee County for sleds to farm here. I'd be 8th generation in the United States. My great aunt, I wish I would have got. I guess I should have got that stuff kind of around a little better, but she's kept track of all the lineage for my family. So that's pretty cool. We've been here for a long time. I farmed with my grandpa and my dad when I started. Now, when I say I started, I ain't very old. So I started running equipment and stuff. I mean, helping with cattle and stuff since I was a little kid. And I started running cattle with my grandpa in 2011. No, 2012. So back when feeder cattle were good, and 2012, I was 11 years old. Started running cattle with him, renting my first ground, and then kept on farming. My grandpa retired. My dad picked up the farming and farmed with him until he's pretty well. My granddad passed away in 18. And so Dad and I kept on farming together. And then my dad got called to ministry, so he pretty well turned the farm over to me. So I've been around the farm. My wife and I for the last we'd be on our 3rd year now. So,
okay,
fantastic.
Did you grow? So were you able to grow some of your own crop in 2012 then? At that age, when you're younger,
no,
or was it just
the cattle? I was hoping Dad and Grandpa partnered, and I just got into the cattle. I mean,
yeah. So you got to buy into cattle at a good time.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I went through 2012, the high. Of course, we had horrible crop years, bale corn stalks, bale beans.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that was a horrible farming year, good cattle year. And then, there in what was that? 15, 16. Cattle market crashed. We were doing a lot.
16.
16, yeah.
Yeah.
We started doing custom feedlot, custom graze. Um, um, so Grandpa and I are still in with that together, and so I was working for Grandpa in the winter, run cattle, and working the feedlot, and then I helped a neighbor do some haying in the summer. And then planting and everything, helped Dad. I was pretty well everywhere in my high school years. See, I was homeschooled.
That's,
I was
okay.
homeschooled. It gave me time where I
Yep.
worked. I worked a lot in high school. School is kind of a hobby. I mean, I'm pretty good at school, so it wasn't too big of a deal, and so I enjoyed working a lot more. So I just worked a lot.
Yeah. That's awesome. That's great. I was going to ask you if you had time to do any formal schooling in a very serious way. Just like literally, that sounds like a lot going on. Um,
Winter,
and by no, yeah.
winter, rain
So,
day.
yeah. Just schedule them when you can. It's kind of like our podcast recording schedule.
Yeah.
Rain day.
That's great.
So talk
But
more about the farm at its current state. You and your wife are operating it. Talk through like the crops that you're raising, the livestock that you have. You're still in the cattle business? Or?
still in the cattle business. I've switched over cow calf feeder markets. Feeder market's pretty wild and crazy. I don't know. There's so much risk in it, and it's a lot of work. I mean, it's so much work. Run a feedlot when you're doing it by yourself. I did it when I was in high school, and I mean, we were running 6, 7, 800 head in the feedlot, and I was running it pretty well by myself, and that was pretty hard on a guy. Um, so I'm running cow calf pairs with my neighbor actually. He runs about 300 head of cows, and so I've been getting in with him and learning because I'm a feeder man, so I don't know cow calf pairs. Um, so he's been a great way for me to learn. And he's older and he wants to get out of the business, so I'm learning the cattle business, the cow calf business. Um, Traditionally, we've done rye, grow rye for seed. We've been doing that. My dad's been doing cover crops for 15 years. Uh, so that's something that's, I guess, unique. Grow our own rye and sell it. And this year I'm really diverse because the market's so wild. I got corn, soybeans, oats, uh, rye. I got some triticale. If it ever quits raining, I'll hay it. Put it all for seed, I guess. And then after I get through with my oats, I'll go back and plant sorghum sedan. Um, I'll bale it and hopefully sell some of the hay, and then I'll fill my silage pit, feed cattle this winter with it. So I'm really and Milo, and I'm doing Milo this year. So I'm all over the board.
That's a lot of crops.
Yeah,
That's yeah. It's a lot of new stuff too. So you tripled your crop rotation. It sounds like.
yeah, pretty much, pretty much, pretty much. Well, we've had. I mean, it's been so dry lately. I wanted to go into Milo. I've done Milo a little bit. I'm still pretty new to it, so I'm learning the Milo. Uh, the oats I've done for hay, sorghum, triticale. I mean, they're not too big a deal. Um, I'm just trying to diversify and have a little cash crop in the summer because
Mm-hmm.
I know you guys have looked at the market on soybeans and corn, and boy, they don't pencil out very good. So, yeah, hope that some market's going to hit pretty good.
What are you doing with this? You're combining rye. Are you cleaning that rye seed and selling it, or are you selling it to a processor that's marketing it for you? Or?
No, no. We clean it. We clean it here. We got a guy comes up from Wichita, and he cleans
Oh,
it
sure.
for us. We'll get many bulk bags and bag it, or
Yeah.
I got some neighbors. I got neighbors who come out in bulk and just bring a semi while we're cleaning or something, and we'll just fill a semi. And I mean,
Yep.
it's pretty handy. I got a lot of neighbors around, but then I got some guys, Kansas City and Wichita, Topeka. They'll buy rye off of me.
Mm-hmm.
Garnett. I mean, all around. So there's
Mm-hmm.
not a whole lot to do that around me. So it's kind of a niche market, I guess, which is handy.
What have you seen those sales increase over the last 2 to 3 years? Or
Yes, yes, yeah. I'll tell you. What was it 5 years ago? 5 years ago, we planted. Oh man, we planted like 400 acres, and it all yielded like 30 bushel to the acre, 25, 30 bushel to the acre. So we had rye run out of our ears, more than we've ever had, and we were worried we weren't going to be able to get moved, and we got every bushel moved. Uh,
Hmm.
people people are all about the cover crop now, especially the rye. I mean, people will go in, spray it on, blow it on with airplanes over top their corn, or just be right in behind it with a drill or something.
Yeah.
So, and it's been good to see that because it's a good cash crop in a niche market where I can provide for other people. So, not have to worry about the market price and worry about my own price.
What varieties are you raising for rye?
It just be cereal rye.
Just
Just like a
VNS. Yeah.
VNS. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
Got it.
So,
And so how have you kind of mentioned you were learning as we're talking about your different enterprises here, you're talking about how you're learning the cow calf business or, been in cattle a long time, but, somewhat newer to cow calf. Uh, tell everybody, tell us how that's been, how that transition's been, learning the cow calf compared to stockers, compared to feed yard. What do you like? What do you not like? What kind of options does it give you as far as crop rotation and things you can do in the farm? How's that
so
been?
I listen to some of your guys' podcasts. So in our area, we don't really. There's some people who graze corn stalks and stuff like that. We don't do a lot of that because we don't have infrastructure. So and you're talking our average fields 60 to 80 acres, which isn't bad. I mean, a guy could run it, but we don't have any water. I mean, you'd have to haul water. We aren't set up very well to be able to graze like that. So most everything gets hayed, everything gets put in a bale. Um, so cows can be a lot of work because of just having to deal with calving, but yet they're easier than feeders because they don't want to get sick and die quite as bad. Um, because feeders like to get sick and die when you get them 400 weights and it's a blizzard, and I mean then you're working sick cattle all the next. Um, so that's been nice. I mean, the feed program, I got my feedlots within a few miles of me. Um, with grass traps. So that takes a lot of load off where a guy can run a feed wagon, get them out of the mud, um, and kind of spread them out a little bit. Uh, so I kind of like that. I like the options you got with cow calf. Whereas feeders, you feed them through the winter, put them on grass, pull them off, and you got to get rid of them unless you fatten them out. But then you're taking that extra risk. Whereas cow calf, I can pull the cows if cow market's high, then you can sell cows, you can sell old cows, you can sell your calves wherever you want them. Bred heifers have been a real good market because then you got all kinds of options. You can
Hmm.
feed, you can breed them and then sell them. You can calve them out. There's real good money in
Yeah.
that. Nobody wants to put in all the work for calving out heifers because they're a pain.
Yep. Yep, that is true. As a general rule, one of the fun things about you know, the job and getting to do what I do is to travel quite a bit and talk to people. Justin, I know it's the same for you, and see what other people have going on. And there's all this kind of I don't know, micro communities, or there's a way of doing things that you run into when you go to a place, and all of a sudden you're like, there's like an invisible line, and like, oh, like I got to this place and people do it this way, and it's very consistent and it's very well known, but continually find surprises. Like, oh, I had no idea people in this part of the world were doing something like this. One of the things that I commonly get about the North is that, well, I mean, and it's like you guys have like the infrastructure, kind of comment on the cornstalk grazing and stuff. And it's kind of like, actually, half the time, three-fourths of the time, the infrastructure that we have on a cornstalk field, I wish we didn't have because it's not functional. Like the old stock dam that's like super skunky in the fall, that's like not worth having, and it's easier to haul water. Like I wish that infrastructure wasn't there. Like the 70-year-old fence that's got woven wire in it that's fallen in, that all it's going to do is short out my single hot wire to keep my cattle in. I wish that infrastructure wasn't there. And so and certainly we're actually building, getting the 3 barb fence around corn stalks, getting some stuff piped in, things like that. But it's surprising how we actually don't most of the time have a lot of infrastructure grazing corn stalks, and when we do, it's half the time or more detrimental. you know, it's just I don't know. It's kind of it's a paradigm thing. It's like I hear this from my in-laws and folks in Iowa and others who travel around. So I'm not. You didn't join the podcast for me to kind of get argue with you, Dodge, but I'd really encourage you to say, think through what little infrastructure you might need. Same water tank that you maybe putting in the sprayer, using this fill the sprayer can get parked stationary in an idle time of year to fill cows' water tank for quite a few days, and get creative, because once you get cattle trained to a single hot wire, you can do a lot of stuff with them, a lot of stuff.
More options that way. Yeah. And I got a couple places that wouldn't be terrible. Like, I got, what'd it be, a 60, two 30-acre patches to buy one of my feedlots. And I've got a 120-acre field to buy another one of my feedlots. That wouldn't be too bad, because then I got rural water at both them feedlots, which I have used. So I guess here's a side deal where I have kind of done that. My buffalo, the bison, they like to crawl fences in the summer, or not in the summer, like February, March. Wheat's greening up and the rye and everything's greening up. They like to go through, and you can't really stop a buffalo. So you just can't. Basically, they get out and you just lead them back in.
Like really big, scary sheep.
They are. Well, they are exactly like that. They actually lead better than cattle. I've actually led our buffalo over a mile with the gator in a bag. Wow. Just by myself, and we got about 80 head of buffalo, and they just follow right in line. I mean, they do a good job doing that. But this year we got a fescue, 50 acres of fescue, and I planted rye into it because it wasn't growing up quite fast enough. So I planted like 60, 70 pounds of rye into that fescue, just right into it, and that they haven't crawled fences all winter long. Now hopefully it keeps that, but all the natives greening up now. So, but that has been a lifesaver is doing that, because them buffalo can be a pain when they start crawling fences.
So are you running the buffalo like your cow-calf operation, where you're selling off the calves in the fall, or what does that look like?
So that's been an interesting market. I try to do the direct to consumer with the buffalo. Works real good. It was really, really good after COVID, because everybody wanted to get into the beef market. Everybody wanted to be buying wholes, halves, quarters, all that. We've had the buffalo for about 5 years. So I do quite a bit of that. I don't know, like 8, 10 head, 15 head a year. I'll sell them. Buffalo are a little bit different because it takes 2 years for them to get big enough to kill them. So you got to run them a little bit longer. What we actually did this last year is we sold our heifer calves, and I think this is what we're probably going to start doing. We sold our heifer calves. They have a sale at Salina once a year. So we sold our heifer calves and kept all of our bull calves. So they'll be a year old right now. And this is right now when our buffalo calving. And so this fall I'll pull them yearlings off and put them in the feedlot and probably feed them out for 90, 120 days. And there's actually a processing plant in Colorado, Rush, Colorado. And I fed some out this year. I fed like 11 of them out just to kind of try it and see how the market was going to be. And that is really handy. They pay $4.20 a pound hanging weight if they're under 2 years old. So you can make pretty good money, a lot better turnaround, and that market doesn't move. That market goes up, if anything. It doesn't have a fallout. You're not going to be $10 off like you are with the beef market. You feed them out, you take them out there, and you get what it's going to be. And so it makes it a lot easier to pencil, and being as I own the cows, I'm producing the calves, it pays out much better than cattle, because then you're kind of, unless you're hedging and stuff like that, I think the bison is kind of a neat market as that, and it's not on the stock boards either. It's all farmer and rancher owned. All the money in the ranch.
So what's your diet when you're feeding those bison? How's that different from what you would feed a backgrounded calf or a finishing calf?
They eat less. Instead of, if you're fattening out cattle, you can push them 30, 40 pounds per head per day. Bison are about 25 to 30. I also found out this year, because this first year I've ever run in the feedlot, you got to have prairie hay. You got to have free choice prairie hay. I had much better gain when I was feeding everything through the feed wagon. I had a guy from K-State come down and analyze everything, write me up a whole feed plan, and so I was putting everything through the feed wagon, silage, DDG, cracked corn, um, oats, and sorghum, and they did great on it. But they wanted that roughage to build that little bit drier material, I think, to help their gut work better. Whatever, I don't know the study behind it. I'm sure somebody's got something out there. Um, but that's something I found is if you give them just a little bit of prairie hay, they don't eat a whole lot of it, but it's enough that they gain better, and they'll clean up the
Mm-hmm.
bunk. Whereas if not, then they'll kind of get kind of picky on it, and they won't clean up the bunk quite as nice.
Okay.
So I'm learning this whole buffalo feeding out deal. This year was definitely a trial run, and it worked out. It worked out, but I learned a lot. So I mean that's kind of the whole goal of farming. You're always learning, and so
What
next
weight would what weight would you like them to see them at when you're finishing them? What's your target weight, finished weight?
to get up 1,000, 1,200 pounds. Normally,
Mm-hmm.
normally at 2 years old you can push them to that. I've heard other people push them a little bit harder than that. If I can get them up to 1,000, 1,200 pounds, I'll be pretty happy. That's not weight for buffalo.
So when you first decided to get buffalo, where did you where did you buy your cows or your bred heifers, or how did you do that?
So Maxwell, which is out by Canton, which is kind of by McPherson, if you guys kind of know where McPherson, Kansas is. Um, they have a wildlife preserve there, and I don't even know, they've got a few hundred. Well, they probably got 200 or 300 head of buffalo out there, and they do sell every year. So we bought 11 head to start with because we're like, well, we don't know about this. We knew we wanted to get into the bison market. We've seen the numbers, but we're like, well, we don't know about the handling. And my dad and I are feeder men, so we didn't quite know the cow calf side of things. We were towing it. So we got them, and that was in the end of November, beginning of November, um, and put them in the feed lot. And we have a big feed lot pen, so just kind of watching them, seeing how they act, and just kind of getting familiar with them because we had never done anything with them. And we're like, well, this ain't too bad. So then we went up to Salina and we bought 33 more at the sale up there and brought them home, and that's how we jumped in head first.
Who was pushing you at that sale, Salina? Like what that costs? Like what's a buffalo auction? Is that happening once a month? Is that happening twice a year? Is Salina, what else are they selling? Like tell me about how one goes about finding bred buffalo cattle at an auction.
So, the best thing to look at is like NBA, National Bison's Association. So that's
Yep.
for the United States. It's actually KBA, Kansas Buffalo Association, which is under NBA. That's who puts on the Salina sale. And they do it once a year. I think it's the first week of December, if I'm thinking right. Um, they go up there and the whole sale's run by Bison ranchers. So we run the whole. We go up there. We'll drop our calves off or whatever the for and set up, and we run the whole entire sale for the bison sale. And I think there was like 600 or 700 head there this year that went through the sale barn, which is pretty impressive. And there's people who haul from clear around. I mean, we've had people from. I remember when we bought our buffalo, we bought a bull from Tennessee. There were some cows we bought from South Dakota. I mean, people drive all over to come to the sale, and there's multiple
Hmm.
sales around the country. But normally they do it once a year. It's not something that you do weekly.
Huh. That's so. Does anybody castrate the bull calves? At birth or a young age to finish them out? Or are they keeping them intact because they're going under 2 years of age, or what are they doing?
Yep, they're keeping them intact. So the National Bison Association, what they're trying to do is preserve bison as natural as can be. Um, so you can't brand them, bison. You can put ear tags in, but you can't brand them, can't castrate them. Uh, Uh, that's just have set because they want to keep them natural as can be. So you just feed them out as bulls.
Do you try to do that tagging at birth?
No, no, no. Well, the nice thing about buffalo when they calve out, the mamas are so protective and they're still wild. Um, so you don't help them at birth. You pretty well just look through binoculars. You can drive out there with the gator and look at them, but you don't get too close. And the funny thing about them, their calves. Their calves don't leave their side after they drop the ground for 3 months. I mean, they are glued to their mom. I mean, they just
Huh.
don't you can't get to them. You'll get killed. They're pretty protected.
And you never take
Huh.
the bulls out, right? Like you just leave them in there the whole time, or
Yeah, yeah. So bison are cool. You only got one calving season with bison. Um, they're calving right now. What is it? May, um, April, May, June's normally when you calve out bison. I think I've got mine synced up now where they're all in May. Um, so I'll have a little. I like that they're syncing up a little bit better. Got the rye going, and I've been giving them liquid protein through the winter, and they don't eat much
Mhm.
of enough to kind of keep them happy and keep them full. Um, but so they only calve here in May, and so so when they cycle when they wean their calves off, they just do it automatically. So that makes it handy. You don't even have to mess with the bulls. They have a whole section they run on. We just let them run, and when we go out there, like what we've been doing for slaughtering them, we'll go out there and we'll just pick out the bulls, like the 2-year-old bulls. We've been grass finishing them, and we um, shoot them in the neck, so they won't feel nothing. Just shoot them, bleed them. We have our vet there, and he signs off. Yep, they're in good bill of health, and take the locker. So it's a pretty slick deal. There's some guys who catch them, and they'll run them through, and they'll sort off their bulls and put them in a trailer.
Mhm.
There's not very many lockers that can handle a buffalo. I
A
think it's good,
live buffalo.
but it's not the most common because buffalo are a lot stouter, and when you get them in confined areas, they get pretty rowdy.
I'd imagine like if you're a locker and you've been through the past few years and you can stay busy doing whatever you're doing, it would just be a lot easier to slaughter pigs, right? Like it just would be easier. You know? Like who's like, well, I have a 1 year waiting list no matter what I do. Let's do buffalo. Let's do live buffalo
Yeah,
just to keep it exciting.
I guess so. I guess. See, we don't have a whole lot of pigs around here, so it's either cattle or buffalo. I mean, there's some pigs, but it's not like it's a big
It's
booming
true.
market. We are.
It's true.
Isn't that more of a
True.
thing north and the states and stuff? Iowa,
Yeah.
Illinois.
Yeah, no, I'm sure it is. Yeah. No, like I said, yeah, any for setup for Buffalo, I'm sure it's fine. But I would more than imagine that it takes quite a bit of infrastructure upgrades to go from, you know,
Yeah,
steers to Buffalo.
yes,
Yeah.
yes. Buffalo can get pretty wild.
one of the things that I kind of wrestle with in my mind is this more of the thought of this holistical management of running cattle like the bison, right? Like you don't take the bulls out. It's more like natural selection of what's getting bred and when they're breeding on time. And you just let them be at birth. You don't touch them. You don't tag them. You're not vaccinating them. You just let them do their thing, right?
Yeah,
And if you compare that to the cow calf business, there has to be some intensive management. Like we're farmers or ranchers, right? There has to be some decisions made at a management level to make more productive things happen and make more financial gains, right? Depending on when you're calving and how you're pushing them and how you're feeding them. But that balance is tricky sometimes. And I think especially at calving time, like we're right at the end of calving time, and you're kind of, or me especially, I'm thinking through how calving went, and there's some things that never go right. And it leads me back to thinking, how can we do this at a more holistic way so that it's easier for me, but probably it's easier for the cow and the calf as well, right? Like just let
yeah.
them be, don't screw this up, and they're probably going to be okay if you stay out of their way. Do you find yourself taking things you've learned with the bison herd and translating that back to your cow calf herd?
Oh, yes. I'd say. I'd say yes to a point. The problem with cattle compared to bison are still wild. Bison haven't been messed with. Cattle we've messed with so long they're soft. Um, it's like a difference between a quarter horse and a Mustang. You know, um, you gotta baby them. You gotta baby a quarter horse. You can't just let them run. You know, they're probably gonna have something stupid happen, and they're probably gonna die. You know, when you baby something and you constantly take care of it for generations. I mean, we're talking hundreds, thousands of years we've been running cattle. Um, it gets tough where you can just let them be because they've just been so docile. You know, um, which I still think, natural selection, especially with the buffalo. If I got buffalo that's sick, I mean, I don't want it then. I don't want it to carry that bad gene on. Um, now if it just needs a little bit of help, sometimes. I mean, it all depends on what's going on. If you want treated or not. But for the most part, I don't do nothing with them. I give them a little bit of insecticide. Um, to help get rid of. Oh, I had some put in the feed lot, and they got wormy because they're in the lot because they kept jumping fences. So I locked them in the feed lot for like a month, and buffalo did not do well like that. Had the whole herd in a big lot pen, and that did not do well. They got wormy, so I had to clean that up. But now, since I've got them where they're not jumping fences and they're running all winter long on pasture, I haven't had to do anything with them. They just they just go on. If I got one that's old and she dies, and she dies, Um, so and then of course there's the natural selection of, hey, you're leading everybody jumping the fence, you're going to get turned into hamburger too. So I discourage that. But you kind
I
of do
think,
that same thing with cattle too. You got a jumper, you're going to get rid of her.
yeah. But I think how you're talking through, you bring the herd into a lot, and now you see some issues with sickness and health being compromised, and I think the same can be true with cow calf herd, right? Like right now, things are kind
Oh,
of still locked up until grass is ready. By God, you get them out for the summer, it's hands off. It's
yeah, you really don't have
cruise
anything.
control in, and so
Mm-hmm.
something to be said about just a natural environment that's really really healthy for them, spread
Yeah.
out, green grass, proper nutrition's right there for them, and you just can't go wrong with how you're doing that system then.
I would like to get to that more with cattle, and not use the lot pens nearly as much. Um, I'd like to figure out a way. That's where like the grass traps are handy, But like they were coming up into the lot pens when it was all muddy because we had a bunch of snow, and it was that horrible winter where it's 30 degrees. Nothing's frozen, nothing's dry, just rain, sleet, snow,
Mm-hmm.
horrible. It never dries up, you know, and everything's always wet. And so we were just dragging bales. We'd take the oat bales. That's where the oat bales came in real handy this year, and feed them out on grass, get them out away from the mud, get the calves out of the mud, because our fall calves they were getting sick, and so we had some issues there. But once we got them out of the mud, I mean everything just cleared up. Get them dry, lots of straw. I baled like 150 straw bales, and we used almost every one for bedding,
Hmm.
just to dry place to lay down. And it was pretty well do everything you possibly can to keep the stupid things alive this winter. It was a rough winter.
Yeah. Yeah, it sounds like we had a mild winter, but yeah, I know down south, I've heard the stories about the moisture and the cold and wind events.
It was just so wet. And then we got when was that? January. We had a week of below zero, and so we went from snow and wetness, and everything was soaking wet to below zero weather and blowing, and it was hard on them. But we didn't lose a calf through that. My
Hmm.
neighbor and I we worked our butts off. We prepared for it. We got plenty of straw out. We got everything spread out where all we had to do was make sure a tractor started, and we were able to get to the feedlot, and um, everything made it through that just fine. Keep waters open.
Yep.
Water.
Well, one of the things we wanted to talk about, Dodge, was there your sabbatical from the farm. So started very early, basically while you're still in middle school, high school, getting very actively involved, ownership, things like that. But you found a way or had a opportunity to leave for a while,
Well, I
correct?
guess that. So, um, um, we're Christians, so
Mm-hmm.
faith is very very important to us, and God is. I mean, being a farmer, I mean, you put $500,000 out there and put seed in the ground and hope you're going to be able to pay your bills. You know, so if you don't have faith, then I think you're just crazy. Uh, um,
Yeah. I don't know. I actually don't know how you could raise livestock or be a farmer without faith. I don't know how it'd be done.
I don't know. I don't know how you could get
Yeah.
up there and think, oh, go in the blistering cold at -30, and I mean, yeah, that would be hard. I can't imagine it. I
Yeah.
just,
The hardships, but also the good stuff too. You know what I mean? Like when you see life, how do you not realize how there could be something bigger than just us humans on Earth? You know what I mean? Like it's just
yeah,
fathoms me. But yeah. All
yeah,
right, keep going with your sabbatical.
yeah. Uh, so, my dad, this was this last year farm. It was a year before that, so that was 2021. Um, my dad felt called to do a sabbatical. When would it be? Fall of 2020? Yeah, so 2021 we did our sabbatical. He felt called to do a sabbatical. Um, uh, so that's what we did. We didn't plant a single acre. He felt called to do that, and then what's funny, felt called to do that. I got married in October, and then we didn't plant nothing that next year. And that's when my dad also felt like, I feel like I'm called to ministry as well. So there you go. And uh, so my wife and I, my new wife and I, took over the farm and ran through a sabbatical. So it was a learning period of, well, how are we going to pay the bills? And you had to have the faith for that. Um, it talks about in Leviticus 25 the Sabbath year, um, um, about every 7 years. Moses, when he's on Mount Sinai, was getting all the Levitical laws from God, and and out faith. Uh, uh, at the time, it was Jewish faith, but God told him, "Hey, you're taking a break every 7 days to worship me. Now your ground that I let you run, that I've blessed you with to be able to manage, um, needs to also rest every 7 years." And so that's what we did. We didn't plant a single acre. It also talks about whatever does grow, you can take to feed your family. So what I did that year is I sprayed a lot. I did a lot of custom spraying and custom planting for some people and combining, just some odds and ends. I still hayed, still ran cattle because that's something that the land provided. And actually, on my farm ground, I sprayed with 2,4-D and dicamba, so I killed all my broadleaves um, just to keep it clean. Um, because I mean, if you think about it, the weeds in a somewhat are kind of a sin of the world. It's kind
Sure.
of because I mean, think about how they take over like pigweed, mare's tail. So I cleaned them up, and then we actually hayed a lot of it. Crabgrass grew, foxtail hayed. So we hayed. Oh, I think we hayed about 2/3 of everything. Grew up real nice, and so we hayed it off, and that's how we helped pay the bills. And but it was mostly faith because you think about a farm and how they operate year to year, and you still got bills. It's not like we quit paying our renters. Um, so it was by the grace of God that we made it through it, and He provided. I mean, we paid our bills, and we're still farming today. So um,
Okay. Sorry, I have to say that's amazing, and I completely misunderstood like the prep sheet, Justin, on what sabbatical meant. I thought like maybe you went backpacking in Europe for a year,
no,
like stayed in hostels, nannied for a wealthy Jewish family in Switzerland. I don't know. I thought that's what you did, like got off the farm. This is This is the first time I've heard in a modern era someone doing a whole farm sabbatical year in the Leviticus tradition. So this
Yeah,
is very interesting. Can you
yeah.
tell me, is this common? Is this a one of those things that happens from time to time in your area or in your community?
No, I don't know anybody who's done it recently. I don't know. Everybody I tell about it, they're like, "You did what? You didn't farm all year long?" You know, they can't believe it, and they're like, "You're still farming now? You're not broke?" It's like, well, no, not any more broke than a normal farmer is. Uh, so it's definitely not common, but I think God calls us um, to trust in Him and to do those things where we step out in faith. Whether that's something small like stepping out in faith and going and sacrificing our time and putting in time at church. God asks us to and calls us to step out in faith and show Him that we believe in Him and that He's going to bless us when we go to heaven. We're building up those stores, and it's not something that I'm trying to toot my horn about or anything. Um, but I am blessed that we were able to use it as an example of, hey, we quit farming for a year. If we can do it, you guys can do it. You just got to step out in faith and believe. Um,
Well, so I would say though that it's a very different statement to say that we quit farming for a year than to say that we took we rested the land. We asked we didn't ask the land to produce grain for a year, right? Because you were still grazing, you were haying, you were spraying, you were managing weeds. Very deliberate. You certainly didn't
Yeah.
quit. You probably worked about as hard that year as any year, honestly, because of the way you had to manage things.
yeah, I would agree with that. I did have more. I mean, you still have more free time. So, I mean, it was nice because I was newly married. My wife had some health issues that we were working through, so it gave me time to be able to go to doctor's appointments and do those kind of things. Um, it gave us freedom on that standpoint, and just learning being married is a huge change. Um, um, so it was a blessing in disguise at the time. You're like, oh my goodness, how are we gonna make this work? And it's like, God's got it. You got to just breathe, and
Hmm.
it's all gonna work out. And honestly, it helps me. It helps me now. It's like, boy, the markets don't look good right now. I've planted 150 acres of soybeans, and it just keeps on raining. It's like, we're behind schedule. But it's like, it'll be fine. God will make time
Hmm.
for it. It'll work out. So it
Yeah.
definitely makes a guy relax a little bit more.
That's a powerful statement there. That there alone, what was learned from taking the year off is, well, that's huge. Just, I mean, I
Yeah,
think all farmers, all livestock producers, you struggle with this sense of urgency, and it just causes so much stress, right? The things that are out of control, and leading it back to faith, and giving it up to God versus trying to control it yourself is something it's hard to do for
yeah,
everybody, right?
yeah.
You try to take things into your own hands, and that's a powerful lesson learned, I think. So yeah, that's awesome.
I mean, you probably would know this much better than me, Dodge, but in Leviticus' definition of the sabbatical year of farming, so it's not like but okay, prior to the barbed wire fence invention, which is very recent, if you weren't farming it, like the herder's job was to keep the herds out of the crops, and that everything else was pasture, right? Everything else is being grazed, right? There wasn't like, oh, this is a pasture and this is this and this. It's like everything's a pasture. Everything's being grazed by herders communally, probably in most villages, except for the fields. And the herder's job is to keep the livestock out of the fields, right? So in the sabbatical years, does it say anything about the exclusion of grazing, or is it just not the reaping and sowing?
Um, well, I can actually here. I'll just read it to you if that works.
Oh, yeah.
I prepared for this. Um, where are we here? So it's Leviticus 25 is where it talks about it. Um, and the Lord spoke to Moses on Mount Sinai, saying, Speak to the children of Israel, and say to them, When you come into the land which I give you, then the land shall keep a Sabbath to the Lord. 6 years you shall sow your field, and 6 years you shall prune your vineyards, and gather its fruits. But in the seventh year there shall be a Sabbath of solemn rest for the land. a Sabbath to the Lord. You shall neither sow your field nor prune your vineyards. What grows of its own accord of your harvest you shall not reap, nor gather the grapes of your unattended vine. So not gathering like, if you volunteer corn, something like that, you're not supposed to harvest that. For it is a year of rest of the land, and the Sabbath produce of the land shall be food for you, your male and female servants, your hired hand, and the stranger who dwells with you. For your livestock and the beasts that are in your land, all its produce shall be your food. So that's where it talks about, yes. So they would let their, whatever the ground did provide, fed your
Yep.
livestock, fed you. Um, is whatever the land provided is what fed your livestock. Kept
Yep.
kept your. So yeah.
So that would definitely qualify. Yeah. Yeah. So it's not far off, honestly, from except the sowing part. But if you sowed the year before in the fall, technically you wouldn't be sowing.
Yeah.
Or is it? Yeah.
Well,
Anyway, I don't.
we'll harvest the rye. So like we plant the rye in October, November. So we didn't
Yeah.
do that because then you'd be in the Sabbath year on harvesting. So we didn't.
Yeah, you could prepare for the Sabbath. Yeah, like the night before, like you prepare the Sabbath meal the night before, right? You have you prepare your what you have for the next day. You just can't prepare food on the Sabbath, right? So you can prepare for the sabbatical year. Okay, this whole thought process is thinking through because we've got a fair amount of degraded and degrading soils to the west of me in our part of the world. And you think about one of the things that people are using more common, and there's a lot of people doing this that I thought would never do this, which is to take a year off and plant covers and just graze livestock as a way to try to like slow degradation and build soil back up, whereas it's just not just about like you just have to go a year where you're not trying to take a grain harvest off of kind of any kind. And there's a lot more people leading that way all the time on saline areas and stuff. And so I'm just curious to see how that I actually have thought about this parallel to this sabbatical year in your crop rotation where you're not actually reaping any grain or any hay off. And I hadn't gone back and looked at the text that closely, but that's interesting.
Yeah. And then like we had volunteer rye and things like that, so we're still building our soil and building the root mass. We do no-till.
Mm-hmm.
And we've done no-till for a long time, and so you're still building your soil. And we had like last year. Last year was a drought for us. Last year was a hard year, but I had lots of cover. So when everybody else was planting their beans at chasing moisture 2 inches deep, well, I still had fields that were muddy because I had so much grass cover. It was sometimes a little bit frustrating because I was planting into really wet conditions during a drought. And our crops, I'm not going to say our crops did phenomenal by any means. It was a dry year, and you still got to have rain in the summer. And the heat, we had real hard heat. And but our crops did not, they weren't awful, They weren't amazing, but they weren't terrible,
Right. I feel like this could be like a new twist on the, graze it, harvest it, rent it. It could be like graze it, harvest, rent it, or sabbatical it.
Yeah.
Like I'm just gonna choose sabbatical, and I like map sabbatical. I'm not gonna do. No, I'm not. I am very much not joking with the concept of what you did. Right. I think it's a very interesting and compelling thing. It's a really a great testament to faith. I find it really compelling how you managed within that to make sure that you didn't have the negative effects like weeds going to seed. Like, initially kind of envisioned, okay, there's just a fallow farm, right? Like a prevent plant year where something's just totally overgrown and walked away from it. Definitely not what you did. And interesting that it probably, in all said and done, financially, because of the forage value, because of the grazing value, because of a pretty much 100% reduction in input costs, probably didn't affect you as much as most people would have anticipated.
No, and it really, yeah, we did. You do the math on it. I guess where the math didn't work out, where God pulled through, and you had to have the faith was like paying rent. Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
Overhead. I didn't have the overhead, but I supplemented most of that with haying, cattle, and custom spraying.
Yeah.
Sprayed all year, which worked out because there were people, had neighbors who it was real wet, and then all of a sudden it got dry, and so you only had a
Yeah.
short. So I just ran the wheels off my sprayer, and so I was able
Yeah.
to help them out and make some additional income to help pay for it. So
Yeah.
and that's what I think people get wrong is you can't just have blind faith. You have to put in the work. God doesn't do all the work for you. You have to you have to work for it yourself. You can't just be lazy and sit around and just expect God to pull through and everything to be hunky dory.
Yeah.
We're a sin-filled world. It's not like we're in heaven. You know,
Mm-hmm.
so you still gotta put in the work. You still gotta strive to do the best you can to be the best steward of the land, be the best steward of your money, steward of your mind. I mean, you gotta balance that, and uh, and that's what we did. I mean, we didn't do everything perfect by any means, but that's what we still put in the work to be able to make it happen. Um,
Mm.
God gave us this calling, and we had the faith that He was going to provide. But part of that is we still had to put in the work. Um, Now God did just He helped pay the bills because if you did the math, it's like, boy, this is going to be real tight, and it happened. You know,
Yeah.
and that's where the faith comes in. But we still did the work for it. You know.
Yeah. Well, Dodge, that's a fantastic story. I very much appreciate you sharing, and
Mhm.
that's neat. I was very interested to hear more about that, and I hope our readers are too. Very interesting.
I'm excited. I've been wanting to. I don't. I'm not a big social media person. I tried to do it with my meat market, and I'm just not a tech savvy person. And so I feel very, very honored and happy to have this opportunity to be able to share that with with you guys, with your
Mm-hmm.
followers and stuff, because it's something that's I'm very passionate about and very near and dear to my heart. Um, and I want people to know it's like, and especially in a world less and less, it seems like, and everything's crazy and wild. Well, you just gotta have some trust and faith in God, and it's all out. You know.
Well, I like the idea of how it kind of slows things down a little bit for a year, right? I mean,
Yeah.
there's no doubt that things just get faster and busier in
Yeah.
today's world, and we
Yeah.
expect more from everything. Maybe it's okay to expect less for a year from your fields.
Yeah.
Well, doing every field in 1 year is incredible. But when you really think about it, from what we know about soil health and what we could do and the value of crop rotation, honestly, rotating it through your fields every 7 years is not a stretch really at all.
No. No. No.
Again, that's
No.
back to we're doing that every 3 to 4 years on some saline spot stuff in the James River Valley, saying every third crop rotation is basically cover crop grazing cattle. So
Yeah. 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 I think
interesting.
I think that would be the most feasible thing if somebody wanted to get into it is to start a rotation like that and just and not do everything necessarily, but take a break like what you're saying and build that crop health,
Yeah,
build your erosion, and it gives you time like you get where you have a wet winter like what we did, and then it's like, well, I got these terraces I need to fix, but I don't have the time right
Yeah.
now. I can fix the terraces because I got to be in the field planting, and so it gives
yeah,
you time work on that kind of stuff too, and work on your field and your drainage and things like that.
yeah. Awesome.
Perfect. Well, this has been awesome. It's been a great podcast. We haven't had anybody talk through farming with bison or having a sabbatical year. So we hit a couple new things. So appreciate the conversation. Anything else that we missed that you wanted to share, Dodge? Or?
Oh, I don't think so. I don't know. Pretty well went over.
Our
Fantastic.
Justin and I have talked for years. Our goal is to go back after 5 years and just restart the list and go back. So maybe you get
Yep.
a second chance down the road.
Yeah, yeah, that'd be cool. That'd be cool. Maybe then I can
Yeah.
share some wild bison stories or something.
There you go. And next time I'm driving the stretch of Kansas City to Wichita, and I see the Lebo sign, I'll make sure to turn off. Say hello.
Yeah, welcome anytime.
That's only happened once in my entire life. It's only happened once in my life that I've driven that road, so it may not happen again in the next 40 years. But if it does, I'm sure I'll get back that way. But Dodge, it's very good talking to you. Appreciate the conversation.
Having me on.
All right. Take care. We'll see you.
Well, that was quite the podcast with Dodge, and we certainly appreciate him coming on. One thing that we did not do is we didn't promote his Facebook page where you could check out ways to buy his bison meat, and that is at Slead Farms, and Slead is SLEAD Farms. So check that out on Facebook. If you have an urge to go buy some bison meat, you can find it right there on his Facebook page. And also, if you want to send in any other graze it, harvest it, or rent it out scenarios, email those in to us. And that's at rootsandruminants@gmail.com. We'd love to have those. We do have a few of those stocked up, so we'll get back to cranking out a few of those more graze it, harvest it, rent it out scenarios for you. So appreciate you watching. Make sure you check out Slead Farms. Thanks.
Well, we hope you enjoyed another episode of the Roots and Ruminants podcast. Let us know what you thought of it. You can follow us on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, all those social media things. And, if you ever have any questions, just give us a call. We've got a toll-free number here at 888-498-7333. Be glad to hear from you. Thank you.